Howdy guys, Bookie Laura here. Today I am bringing you my, what month are we on? July wrap up. Now what I've done is filmed a 1-minute book review of all of the books I've read this month, but I try and film them when I finish the book to keep them more sort of fresh in my mind and relevant. It's been a relatively good reading month, considering that I've been going through a bit of a bad reading time lately. It ended on a high. Like at the moment there was the reading rush at the end of July and I read quite a lot as part of that, even though I was quite busy. I've now got like the summer off work, so I'm quite hopeful of getting a lot more reading done and getting a lot more videos done. Look forward to that. Right, so the first book which I read this month was The Dark Wild by Piers Torday. Now this is the second book in a series which I don't know what it's called, but I would have thought it's called The Last Wild. That's what the first book was called anyway. It's a great book. It basically follows the story of Kester, who basically can't talk to humans but can to animals, and he has been sort of taken charge of trying to save the world because humans have done awful things and lots of species are going extinct and all that jazz. And it basically follows his story. So in the first book he met a lot of animal characters and begun his journey, and then this book, I know it's called The Dark Wild, so it shouldn't have been the surprise that it was, but it is proper dark. Like the first one was very much a kind of middle grade, maybe even younger than that. It was a children's book. It had some dark elements, but it felt quite light-hearted and almost fun. Whereas this one feels really, really dark. There's a lot of animals, you know, murdering each other, and the whole storyline just takes a much darker route than I expected. And that was the most noticeable thing for me. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed The Last Wild, but then I think for me I'm really into world building, so once I have that world it doesn't have the same sort of grip on me as before. It's alright. If you like the Last Wild, then you're going to like it, and I think it's good to follow the same characters and find out where they're going on this journey. I must admit that I am definitely going to be finishing this series because I really need to know basically what's going to happen. Are they going to save the animals? Are they going to save the future of the world? Very monumental stuff. Piers Torday is great. Oh, and also worth mentioning that this is the signed version that I got when I met him, which is also bonus cool points. So the first book which I finished this month was Monsters of Men by Patrick Ness. It's the final book in the Chaos Walking trilogy, which basically follows two main characters, Todd and Viola, who... It's a kind of dystopian future, but as we've already done all that in the first couple of books, and this is the kind of ending of the Great War and finding out which side is going to win. In the second book there was a lot of grey introduced, a lot of both characters looking like they were doing things for the greater good, but not actually there being a real clear goodies and baddies. And this book continues that theme, basically because it turns out that most people are baddies, but it also looks more deeply at their relationship. And I mean, it was alright. It felt like it was a good end to the series, but nothing for me came close to the sense of mystery and dystopia in the first book, and I think it never lived up to my expectations when I first started reading that first book. I mean, I enjoyed it, it was okay, but the first book blew me away. So the second book which I read this month was The Last Chance Hotel by Nicki Thornton. This follows, basically, it's a character called Seth, who is a kitchen boy working in a hotel, and all these different characters come for this important dinner, and then one of them dies and he gets accused of it, and it's all about the kind of mystery of trying to figure out what went on. And I think I really enjoyed it. It's the first time I've read a kind of murder mystery but aimed at children, and it was quite enjoyable. I didn't think that for me it was very, very obvious what went on. It wasn't predictable, but then I'm not one to kind of try and work that out. I tend to just follow the story as it happens. Again, I enjoyed it. It wasn't superbly amazing. I wasn't crying with ecstasy when I read it, but it was an enjoyable enough read. I can imagine that children who it's aimed at would really enjoy it, and especially if it was their first sort of foray into that kind of mystery and murder mystery genre, I suppose. The next up, I read The Marvels by Brian Selznick. Now this was bought for me by a girl that I taught a year ago. She bought it for me because I took in The Invention of Hugo Cabret, which she really enjoyed, and I was quite eager to read it. I hadn't ever got around to it because it's quite a big book, it's a hardback book, and also the first half of the story is told through pictures, and that's something that sometimes doesn't really appeal to me. However, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed this book. Like I say, the first half tells the sort of history of the Marvels family through pictures, and then the second half is told through text, and it goes into the sort of modern day story of this kid who is coming under the realisation that he has a connection to the Marvels family, and I really, really enjoyed it. Very character driven, which isn't something that usually appeals to me. Lots of it told in pictures, which isn't something that usually appeals to me. In a hardback book, which doesn't usually appeal to me, but for some reason it all came together really well, and I can only assume... dismiss. I can only assume that that's down to the story, because I really enjoyed it. I was completely invested in the characters, so I highly recommend this. Another book which I read as part of the reading rush was The Silver Linings Playbook by Matthew Quick. Again, I really loved it. I think part of it's to do with me reading them quite quickly, but anyway. It basically, you're introduced to this character whose name I can't remember, Pat. His name is Pat. At the very start of the book, his mum basically checks him out of a mental health facility, so you're aware that there are mental health issues going on. He is completely obsessed with staying fit and being reunited with his wife. And it's kind of the story of his therapy and his recovery and his closure, I suppose, with all this rocky period in his life. And I think for me what I really enjoyed about it was that kind of mystery element. Although it's not a mystery story, it was that finding out, well, what did happen previously? Why did he end up in this mental health facility? What is the situation with his wife? All that sort of came together. And I liked the style that it was told. You know, that unreliable narrator. It was told through, I think, like diary entries, or yeah, it's told from his perspective. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I couldn't 100% say whether it's a good representation of mental health issues, because I don't know, but it was a good story on, you know, and that's what I'm judging it on. And then the final book, which I read this month, was This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. This book is basically a kind of, I don't know, oh, there's a word for this, autobiography, memoir. One of them is to do with not being in, I don't know, not being your whole life, or not being in order or something. But anyway, it's basically his story of some of the experiences he had as a junior doctor. It's quite entertaining. It was a quick read. I felt that I learnt a lot about what it was like to be a doctor, but there is a real overriding theme of him trying to explain how hard it is. Now, I get that. I get that it's a difficult job, and I get that, you know, it's taken a lot out of him, both in terms of his mental health and his family and what have you. But it did get to the point where I felt like, okay, I get it, but can you just tell me some, you know, why I signed up to read this book was because I wanted to find out what it was like to be a doctor, not just that one element. So whilst it was a really enjoyable read, there were elements of it that I found annoying, for want of a better word. It's a really easy read, so I would recommend you read it, and I feel like it did help me to sympathise with the situation that doctors face, which is a lot tougher than I'd realised, but I felt like he really drilled it home, which was a bit much for me. Oh, I've got one more, because I listened to an audiobook. So the final book which I managed to read this month was Wed Wabbit. That's not my speaking impediment. Wed Wabbit by Lissa Evans. I listened to this as an audiobook, basically because I was doing the reading rush and I wanted something that I could try and help improve the amount of reading I was getting done, and also because I had a long drive to do, so I thought, well, we could do it as part of that. Stop knocking into that. It basically is, it's middle grade, although I would be inclined to say it's possibly a bit younger than that. The age bracket is confusing, but it tells the story of a girl whose sister is in an accident, and then she finds herself in a situation where all the toys are real and she has to find a way to get back and save her sister. It was very Piers Torday, There May Be a Castle. It really reminded me of that, almost like the same kind of scenario. Accident, car accident, toys coming to life, solve the problem to get back. It was very, very similar. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. My son loved it. But it's not, that kind of fantastical element is not 100% my cup of tea, and it was just so random. Like, this is why I felt middle grade is perhaps too high of an age bracket, because it was so random. You know, there's like talking dustbins and toys coming to life. It felt like it maybe was aimed quite young, but then other elements of it felt like they were aimed middle grade. So it was good, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that was my reading month. That was August. No, it wasn't. That was July. August is still to come, and I'm quite hopeful that August is going to be a good one. I'm doing a reading challenge with school. In the area I live in, there's a summer reading challenge for children. They sign up with the library and they have to read 6 books and get all these stickers and stuff. And this year the school library service are running a teacher's version where you read 6 books and get a certificate and stuff. And I'm all about certificates and I'm all about reading, so I'm having a go myself. Perhaps I'll do a TBR of that, because I've picked some books from school which I'm planning to read to motivate the children, but also, you know, I love to read, so why not? Anyway, August, I'm going to get back on it. I'm going to make more videos, I'm going to be more here, I'm going to be more present, I'm going to do more reading, all that jazz, so look forward to that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.